Hey everyone, it's Byron here to testify for Jesus Christ, and this is literal testify here. The Lord wanted me to do a movie. I don't know how many parts this may have. Hopefully, it won't have that many parts. But it wanted me to do a movie about my life from like around 2007 till now, just so people can kind of get a feel for who's that been knocking on my door and leaving that slip of paper, and who's this guy saying things are going to happen that nobody else thinks is going to happen, and things like that. So without going into too much of background history, in 2007, 2008, I repented before the Lord Jesus Christ. I cried out to him, told him I needed him. I was in desperate situation. It wasn't too much longer after that, he began to help me. Actually, the next day. And then continued on, and I came to a point one day, I had a decision that I needed help with. I needed to know what I was supposed to do. I had a business. I want to know, try to save a business, start another business. What do I need to do? None of the options that I went and presented before the Lord was one that he chose. And in the process of time, sitting in a room in Decatur, Alabama, trying to figure out which of these options I presented to him, he would select for me. He told me to get up and move to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And at the time, I had no money. I didn't have a job. I was in the middle of a bankruptcy. And going to Baton Rouge, Louisiana was an impossibility in my mind. And I'm going to be honest with you, he led me to think that I was going to go to a seminary here, a Bible college. And a little shortly after that, I did get a job, stayed in the job for some time. And then I had money to go. And I applied for a job in Baton Rouge. I applied for many jobs. I got one of them with AutoZone. Came here, and the very first day of my visit at the college, the very first day, the very first paragraph that came out of a man's mouth, I knew something was wrong. I knew I could not listen to this stuff being taught here. A little bit, I guess, to let you know a little about me, man. When I had this dream called an ice cream dream, and I got YouTube. I got it on YouTube. But in the dream, people kept putting stuff in my homemade ice cream, and I didn't. I knew they shouldn't be doing that. I had to pour some out and start again, and pour it out again and start again. And finally, when it got mixed up, just before I was ready to put it into the ice cream maker, I looked in there, and there was jalapeno peppers and yeast rolls and dill pickles. And the guy, he told me, he said, "Byron, those dill pickles, you're going to say things people don't want to hear. And it's going to make them cringe when they hear what you got to say." He said the pepper is going to be the power of God in it. And he said the yeast rolls, he said the Lord's going to give an increase. Well, I'm just getting started. I just had the dream and all this stuff, and I thought tomorrow, it'll happen, That's not how it worked with me. So eventually I got over to Baton Rouge, and I had that first experience at the Bible college. But I thought, since I had heard something that was contrary to what I believe the scriptures teach, I thought, well, let me hang around and see how things might go. And then the second time that I heard the same thing, the Lord gave me a headache. And I'm talking about I was feeling fine. And then I got this sickening headache. My wife had to help me walk. I couldn't hardly stand up. And I literally thought I was just going to have to lay down. And I got out of the church and hadn't been back. Now, I don't know how to say this. I don't know if there's other people that have this. But with the Lord and me, He doesn't let me dabble around with stuff that, He doesn't let me fake, man. If I think it's wrong, He'll put something on me to where, one, I get sick, two, I just shut off what I'm hearing. And it's been that way now for 8 years. It makes me sick to hear somebody say something contrary to the scriptures, man. And, unfortunately, over the course of this 7, 8 years I've been over here, I've been able to learn, not from people, with people who also hear from the Lord, and through studying the scriptures. And I tell you, there's a lot being said that's wrong. There's a lot of prisoners out there that don't even know they're prisoners. But anyway, I thought, well, Lord, why did you bring me over here? It made me think it was going to be to go to a school, and it turned out like this. And then I just happened to remember I'd had about 3 or 4 or 5 instances like that in Decatur, where I went with high hopes, and then I heard something, and it made me angry. One time my wife had to hold me down from walking out in the middle of a sermon. One time I was by myself, and I did walk out. I walked out, I would think within the first 3 minutes of the time a guy started talking, I just got up and walked out. He's made me to where I can't bear these things. And I know why now. You see some of my stuff, you may kind of understand that too. But even though after I kind of started realizing in Baton Rouge, well, maybe He just wants me to be over here with Him, I still searched, man. I went to another place and same thing. I went to another place and same thing. In frustration one day, I wasn't talking to the Lord about this. In frustration one day, I just called my wife. And it was like a revelation. I said, Leanne, I think He got me over here to be with Him. And that is the beginning of what I can say has been 7, 8 years of just me and the Lord. I'm not saying I haven't had contact with other people and things like that, but I've had absolutely no respect when it comes to, like for example, if a minister says he's a minister of a church, it registers no respect with me because of the error that I see that's happening out there. So anyway, shortly after I came to that conclusion, the Lord began to bring me 2 people. I ran into a guy named James. He and I, one day a week, we would sit down and study the Bible. He said, I asked him, I said, where should we start reading the Bible? He said, how about Genesis, verse 1 of chapter 1? And that's where we started, man. We went on, I don't know how many years we studied together. Occasionally, other people would join us. And even when other people would join us at times, we would always run into some conflict, man. And I can tell you now that most of the conflicts that I ran into during this course of time, they can be, it's almost like they can be represented by denominations. This denomination, the peculiarity is about this, and this denomination over here, the peculiarity is about this. And finally, as it may be evident to you today, the Lord's told me these denominations are trade deals, and that just implies they're trying to have a one-upsmanship on the other. And hearing from the Lord and seeking the Lord is not in the denominational interest. What's in their interest is to be different and diversified, and you can get more members if you have a specialty, a little clique, a niche. That's what I meant to say. So James joined me in the Bible study. Other people came and went and all that. And I began to study with people online. There was a time on Facebook that I actually, I advertised you can join if you'd like. And during the whole course of the time, the Lord was dealing with me through dreams and through speaking to me, visions. I've seen so many visions and dreams. It's hard. I was looking the other day. I think the things that I've published has been about 79 dreams, I think, and visions and stuff. But that, some of them I don't even publish them. I just hold them. One day I was getting ready to go to the doctor, and it's like a mother, man. God said, "Do what the doctor says." And I told my wife, I said, "He just told me to do what the doctor says." And you'd be amazed. You'd be amazed how that turned out. It would blow your mind to hear the whole story of doing what the doctor said. But anyway, during my work, the Lord would, he would, like I was a manager, I was a manager managing a store, and he told me to step down. And I'm thinking to myself, what sense does that make? I mean, it doesn't make sense to step down, take a drop in pay and this and that. But I'd say, Lord, okay. And I'd go to my bosses, and it's like the Lord had his hand on my bosses. And I said, look, I need to step down. And they're all, why? Because they don't want to lose a manager, And I'm like, God told me to step down. And I don't know if they necessarily understood or not, but they acted like they did. They accommodated that, and I was able to step down. Not long after that, I'm gonna share this story because it's pretty touching to me. After I stepped down from work, it came up a time I felt like the Lord wanted me to step back up, and and one night I just prayed. I said, I'm feeling this. Is this you? And do you want me to do that? And kind of like, what do I do? That very night, I know there's plenty of folks out there that don't believe in dreams, but man, when you pray and Jesus Christ shows up in your dream and he's telling you where to go to work, you gotta believe it, man. So that night he showed up. I remember thinking, he paralyzed me. His presence paralyzed me. I could not move. But he sure did. He took the time to show up and told me which store to go to. He didn't tell me that. By visualization, I knew what to do. I went back to be a store manager, and it's at the very store I started with. It's interesting. And things like that continue to happen with the same company. I stepped down again, hoping to make my way back over to Alabama, because I know the Lord's shown me that's where I need to work. So anyway, I have not lived a normal life. I've not lived a life that would be pleasing and acceptable to church members. I've lived a life that when God said something, I believed it, and I did it. And then in the 2011, 2012 time frame, I was all smiles and giggles and everything, but he began to show me these things that are coming on the United States. I was naive. I had no idea, man. And since that time, I ran into people that's been saying bad things are coming to the United States for a long time. Then he began to, pretty much show me and tell me to share them. And, when you go and you tell somebody something that's contrary to what they want to hear, that's one thing. But when you go and you tell them something that's contrary to what they want to hear and contrary to everybody else they know in the whole entire world, that's a whole nother thing, man. So, it took me a while. The first time he showed me something and gave me a vision to say, share it. It took me about 30 days before I could actually begin to put together what to share. It's a video on YouTube called Warning to Us, Persecution is Coming. I was in shock for 30 days. Since that time, man, the Lord has, man, I've been inside Masonic halls and dreams. He's shown me their sorcery. He's shown me how they pressure each other, how they're scared of each other. They're scared to walk away. They've taken these oaths. I've been in battlefields with Cubans, man, and that's here in the United States. Seen Russians kill people. So I literally have just lived a life pretty much separate from normal, and only what the Lord is showing and instructing and teaching me. So I don't necessarily think like other people at this point. I don't, maybe I don't communicate like other people. But I do know this, that my heart is with the Lord, and there's a desire to say what's right. There's a desire in me that would like to say things that are pleasing and, not aggravate people. But that's not the way of the Lord. That's not how He's got this thing working, and sometimes people might get love confused with being nice, and the people that get love confused with being nice spoil their children. If you're in a war, if you're growing up, you're in a war. If you get your love confused with being nice, you end up looking at your best friend dead. I had this experience in Panama. I was looking at a guy that he had been learning from me. He wanted to go to Ranger School, and I'm sitting there looking at him. He's got 5 bullet holes in him. Being nice and taking care of feelings. I don't even know that we should consider that love. Telling somebody harm is coming, that's a promise of God. He's going to warn His prophets and warn people before He does things, and I guess that's what He's brought me around for, man. And so I'm not going to sound like 99% of the people that you hear. But I will say this: the Lord has brought me to a point that when these things do come to pass, you're going to remember. You're going to remember God sent me. You're going to remember, if you choose not to believe, if you choose to hang on to the church crowd that's giggling and laughing and stuff like that. I would imagine that at some point in time, you're going to think to yourself, crap, man, that crazy dude was right. Because I don't speak, I don't talk outside of what I believe to be correct by the Lord. One other thing, this has come to my mind twice, as I've been sitting here. And I guess the Lord just wants me to share it because it is a big deal. I tried not to share it, and then he said, do it. Brought it back up. It's hard if you've been, I'm gonna say that this is hard for people to even understand. If you've been in church and I say you've been a prisoner, that's hard. That's like, what? What do you mean? I go to church all the time, but that's what the Lord's saying about most churches, man, is that it's like a prison. It's keeping you from Christ. I'm just going to say this the best I can, man. Just show you how much effort the Lord is going to put into somebody or invest in them. I was worried that I try to make sure that I don't say something wrong. And, well, I can't read good, and I can't always articulate a complete thought when I'm doing a video. I'll start a thought and then jump, and I see that. Maybe you guys see that too. I don't know. But I wanted to make sure that I didn't mess up Romans chapter 7. I mean, I sincerely wanted to make sure I was not mixed up when dealing with Romans chapter 7. And I prayed, man. Sometimes when I pray, it's not a nice little prayer. Sometimes it's urgent. And this night, I was humble, and I just said, Lord, don't let me mess this up. Because I was planning on writing out my understanding, and I said, Lord, just don't let me mess this up. And then to think, I'm just a little person, man. I'm not anybody. I wouldn't think that I'm anybody necessarily special, but apparently God's got time for me. In that prayer, or just at the ending of the prayer, it wasn't long. If it was longer, if it was even separate, I don't remember. I saw this vision, and in this vision, I saw this old man. All he had on was like a tunic, just kind of like short pants, He was kind of bent over in the shoulders, had a walking cane, and he walked up to me. I was like, I could see myself and him in that vision. And he walked up to me and took me by the left arm. And he looked into my eyes like, come here, sonny, come with me. And then I came out of the vision. I didn't think much about it, I'm just like, what was that, Well, the next morning I sat down with Romans chapter 7, and, stuff just started flowing and going. And I got toward the end of Romans 7, and I just began to weep, man. I just began to realize, the night before I was struggling, and then this had just gone so smooth. And then the thought of that old man came to my mind. And, this is one of those things that it'll put you into thinking I'm crazy. But I literally believe that the Lord showed me in a vision the guy who wrote that, Paul, he's going to take you by the arm, and help you understand what it meant. So I take this stuff very serious. Some of the things that I say, even if it's according to the Bible, like in Romans chapter 7, and some of the things I say about Romans chapter 7, some of those things in chapter 8, man, some of those things are probably hard for some people to accept, because nobody's teaching it, much less teaching it like maybe I say it. But when you've had that experience, when Jesus Christ shows up to tell you where to go to work, and Paul shows up to get you through what he meant, God tells you to, just like a parent, do what the doctor says, man. It gets you out of this. I grew up in 1990, 2000 something, and put you into, man, this is no joke. This stuff is for real. So that's a little about me, a little about my time that I've spent here. I will say this, just to kind of cap this off. I worked with a bunch of folks that, they weren't as serious as I was, and a lot of them would say, I'm Christian, but their actions didn't necessarily prove that along or anything. But somehow God gave me respect in their eyes, man. And since I've been here in this particular area, I haven't experienced any of those people that are just, almost like vehement against somebody that's had an experience with God. Like I said, I'm going back to Alabama. I'm going to Decatur, Alabama, and to tell you, there is a black cloud over that city. Darkness is hovering there, man. And I had an opportunity to talk with another prophet that's been in the area trying to pray, and that prophet said, it reminds me of the time when angels couldn't even get through because it's so thick. I think it's that person thought it was pride. Since then, the Lord's shown me about brutishness. I've talked about that on some videos. There's something there. It is like locked down spiritually, and there's few people there that are able to receive light. But that's my story, and I'm sticking to it, and that's where I'm headed in that general area. I would just want to say, if you questions about me or anything like that, you can kind of just think that I'm a guy who ran into I'm a hot or cold guy. I'm either on fire for the Lord, or I'm playing with the world, man. And God got me this time, and it hadn't stopped. And this is for real. I'm trying to save people's lives, man. It's not a matter of I'm trying to necessarily make them feel good. I'm trying to save lives, man. Right now, it's we're down to that. So I'll get off. Just kind of wanted to give an idea of what's been going on with me for the past 7 years. That's a short story for 7 years, but there's a lot of stuff in there that I could add to that. But nothing's going to take away from the fact that God's been the center of it. Has been directing me and leading me, and literally preventing me, literally in the physical, preventing me from embracing false teachers. He literally has. So, if you got a pastor you're proud of and you let me listen to him for a little bit, don't ask me if you want me to continue to think he's good, you might want to consider not even asking me, man, because it's rough out there. It's rough. There's a lockdown on the gospel, man. So anyway, I'm going to get off and let you go, and hopefully this is helpful. The Lord will spend time with you, man. I mean, I don't know. I don't think I'm special, man. I really don't. I think he wants to be with everybody. I really do. He yearns for that. We just got a bunch of junk in our lives, man. It's not like you got to get cleaned up to get the junk out of your lives. You got to get broken and come to Him and acknowledge that He can clean you up. Then, He'll start the party. So I'll get off and call this a wrap. See you.